Good evening and welcome to the Gold Goats and Guns Hour here on YouTube and DLive. My name is Tom Luongo. It is Monday, September 9th, 2019. We've got a lot to talk about today. And tonight we're going to talk about Brexit, but in context of something a little bit deeper and more philosophical than I was talking to a friend of mine this morning, and I had an idea today for what I thought was a really interesting talk on the subject. Now, again, I'm going to be doing this one kind of blind without note cards or what's the word I'm looking for? Bullet points. That's the word. That's the phrase. Bullet points. We're going to be doing this kind of flying blind without bullet points tonight. Not really terribly organized, but I do have an idea in my head about what I want to talk about. It's a couple of things that are going through my head. But before we go too much further, you can follow my work over at tomluongo.me. You can follow me also at weekly over at moneyandmarkets.com, as well as over at strategicculture.org. Twitter, TFL1728. That is T as in Thomas, F as in Francis, L as in Luongo, 1728 or 17.28. If you get the reference, then you do not know what I'm talking about. All right, I will get back to it. I'll tell you why 1728 a little later on, for those of you who are interested. It's like a triple entendre, my Brexit handle. Like my Twitter handle. But we're going to talk about Brexit tonight, and we're going to do so in a way that I think is a little bit more philosophical given the events of the day, and what I think is going on, and what I think that is likely to happen. And I'll give you some predictions. So we'll see. All right. So where are we with Brexit? Oh, and FYI, if you are interested in supporting the channel, you can do so through my Patreon at Patreon/GoldGoatsAndGuns. You can also donate either via crypto or via PayPal. The links are all in the description of the video down below. Please tweet and retweet and share, like, subscribe, all that stuff that you're supposed to do. I'm supposed to tell you to do, because if I don't tell you to do that stuff, you won't do it. So please do all those things, and let's try and get some people into the channel tonight. Not that I'm probably going to be at my best or my most coherent, but I certainly am not going to scream tonight. And the main reason for that is because this is going to be a relatively sober talk, because at the end of the day, we all knew that they were going to go to the mat to try and stop Brexit. Well, Brexit is the issue of the day, Jonathan Gillespie. This is why we're going to talk about it. Because it's the most pressing issue of the age. It's the most pressing issue for those who believe in individual sovereignty, rights, all those little things. Because what you have now is an openly undemocratic process happening in Parliament, and while the parliamentarians who are trying to stop Brexit wrap themselves in an the air of legitimacy of what they're doing, is the right thing. It is absolutely, it's disgusting, it's ridiculous, it's horrible, it's all the things that we've all talked about on multiple occasions. But I want to bring up, so I'm going to go over the events of the day. I'm not going to talk about why I titled this talk the way I did, which is that, somehow does Britain have to hit rock bottom before they can actually get Brexit. Now I'm going to tell you why. But let's start with the basics. So what happened today? Well, obviously Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister, went to the Queen and got her and advised her to assent to the Ben bill, supposedly ruling out a no-deal Brexit. Forcing him Parliament forcing him to do that which Parliament does not have the right to tell him to do. This is a very important point. It's the same point I made on Friday. It's the same point Mike Shedlock's been making over at Mish Talk all weekend long. So that's what happened today. And so the bill went through, and everybody who has vandalized the British governmental system is now falling on their sword. They've done their damage, they've done all they can to stop Brexit, and now they're going to leave so that they do not feel the wrath of the voters, hoping against all hope that by them removing themselves from the scene, that they can get different people, for the people to continue to the charade of having representative government by, well, we'll get different people in there. We won't have the same people. It's all nonsense. Then after that bill went through, Dominic Grieve, the odious and literally disgusting Dominic Grieve, pushed through a bill advising or telling the government that they must release all of their correspondence having to pertain to their preparations for a no-deal Brexit. What they want is they want to know what Boris Johnson and them are thinking. Because I was thinking about this afternoon after I was feeding the dogs on my way back inside. And I'm like, why would they put this bill forward? Because they need something for the next 5 weeks to talk about. So if they can get the unredacted Yellowhammer report, which is a complete cock-up from Ollie Robbins, the head of the British Civil Service, it's like asking Mark Carney for what the Bank of England thinks about all this. Of course, they're all going to say that it's all horrible and it's all terrible and you shouldn't do it, and because they're all against Brexit. The British Civil Service is against Brexit. The Bank of England is against Brexit. Everybody in power in Britain is against Brexit. But we're supposed to continue to believe that all of these people who are in power and supposed to be the experts. Remember, this is what we're dealing with here. We're dealing with people who live in the mindset that. And it's the mindset that predicates all of this whole democratic socialist nightmare we're living through. We have democratic socialism. We have representative democracy is just democratic socialism. It's what we have. Okay. But the whole point of this is to reinforce the idea that, well, these are the experts. These are the people who know the most. These are the people whose very jobs it is to tell us what's supposed to happen. So we should only listen to their opinion, right? Because we're too stupid to know what we actually want or anything else. We should only, take our directives from the philosopher kings that we elect, apparently. And then if we don't, and the philosopher kings aren't really even the people we should listen to. We should listen to all the bureaucrats who spend all day coming up with all the data we need to tell us what's going to happen. Even though, leaving aside the fact that all that data, of course, is collected, collated, and presented with a particular agenda. So the whole thing rests on, an ideological foundation of sand, and it's an ideology that's well past its sell-by date, because people aren't believing any of this stuff anymore. No one buys any of this crap. But people like Emily Thornberry and Dominic Grieve and all the rest of them, they want to beat us over the head with the statistics. No. It'll be terrible. Even though that argument has been rejected completely and utterly by the public over and over and over again. Doesn't matter that they're still making the same arguments in 2019 that they were making in 2015 and 2016. Doesn't matter. We're continuing. This is the situation. So that's why Grieve pushed this bill through. He also wanted to be able to get and try and glean from that over the next 5 weeks what Johnson's strategy is to not implement the bill. Because Johnson's made it very clear he's not going to ask for an extension. He's been directed by Parliament that he must ask for an extension. Now, he's directed by Parliament to ask for an extension after the summit by the 19th. But by the 19th of October, asking for an extension may be a moot point. The point here is that Parliament doesn't have anything to talk about for the next 5 weeks. Johnson gets to set the parameters of the discussion. Now, there's really no parameters of the discussion to set because the EU is not going to budge now. They have everything they want. They got this bill through Parliament, and Johnson has no negotiating legs to stand on, or does he? See, from my perspective, and I said this on Friday, and I'm going to say it again. I look at this thing tactically, and I look at this strategically, and I say, they had to know that the Fixed Term Parliament Act was never going to allow Johnson's request for an election to go through. These people have avoided a general election all year. They've had multiple opportunities. Had an opportunity in March, June, July, September to hold the general elections. 4 major events over the course of the last 6 months. As we went up to the original Brexit date, after the original June 30th extension, when Boris Johnson became prime minister, and now. They've had 4 major opportunities to call for a general election, and they won't do it. Why won't they do it? Because they know they'll lose. Doesn't matter that someone will come out with a poll saying, remaining is the way to go. If that were the case, they would have gone along with an election this morning. They would have agreed to it. Johnson looks like the big man here. Johnson looks like the guy trying to implement the will of the people. He looks like the hero. Now, if this bill, over the next 5 weeks, if they present a legal challenge to the bill, which I think they will, which says that this bill is patently illegal, Parliament doesn't have the authority to command the prime minister to get a deal. The Cooper-Letwin bill from March told Theresa May that she had to seek an extension, not demand the terms of that extension and cede that final decision to the European Union. Okay? I don't think that passes muster. I don't think it passes. I think that Johnson has the opportunity to run out the clock past the 19th, at which point the Ben bill is irrelevant. Sajid Javid, the Chancellor, Javid, can't remember his first name, Sanjay Javid, was on the BBC. Mike Shedlock has a great article where he posts the entire interview. And I think in there is the germ of all of this. He's like, 19th is the day. That's the important day. Okay. That's the day. That's what's important. And I think that what it comes down to is that the Ben bill is written in such a way that it demands that by the 19th he must submit this thing to the must submit an extension. And if he doesn't do it, then at some point something will happen. And most likely at that point, Parliament will try and oust him from power and appoint a caretaker government and commit a coup against the government for not getting an extension to Brexit. The other thing that Johnson can do is to declare some form of a state of emergency. To use some legislation, I think that was passed under Tony Blair. Irony of ironies. And that's the other possibility. But at this point, what we're going to have here is these people know that the general election, they're all going to get voted out of power. Okay? So they need to bind the new government into an amendment to Article 50, which they can't get out of. And they're hoping that they get a 2-year extension from the EU. That's what they're hoping for. Cynical skeptic, you mostly missed me just kind of going over everything you already know about what's been going on with Brexit. Berkow's leaving. Grieve isn't going to be in power in 2 months. Neither is Ken Clark or the rest. They're all going to be thrown out of office. If that Cooper's going to be thrown out of office, they're all going to be thrown out of office. Anna Soubry, all of them. All going to be gone. Chuck Amuna, gone. They're all going to be gone. Every one of them. So the question I have is, and I was talking to my friend this morning about this. And he and I were spitballing some stuff. And I said, I said, the Brits have been a blight upon the world, politically and militarily and economically, for the last 300 years. Okay. They are. They're a blight on the world. The British deep state is responsible for so many of the horrible things in this life. And we were, and he was going on and on and on about, that whatever happens here, that it's about time to get rid of this whole concept of the Queen. and the royalty, and that, you know, you rule by blood and all of this stuff. And he made a fair point. I mean, rule by blood is idiotic. That even, you know, in Rome, you know, appointing an emperor is different than appointing a king. King happens, you know, the son goes, it passes from the father to one of the sons. You could skip over one of the sons, but it's going to be in that family. Whereas, you know, Marcus Aurelius didn't pass it on to his son. He had the opportunity, or Aurelius was appointed over that of the emperor's son. The emperor gave, you know, appointed Marcus Aurelius and not his son to be emperor. And that actually extended, at least that was the argument he was making this morning, that actually extended the Roman Empire for a number of centuries, well beyond its use by date. Right? And there are certainly other reasons for this as well, but just thinking about it from that perspective, even the Romans understood that if you have somebody who is absolutely unfit to rule, he should not rule. And he was making that argument. I said, and my response to that was thinking about this from a cultural perspective, from an attack on cultural institutions and what's happening here. But I've been watching an awful lot of British Parliament. I've been talking to an awful lot of Brits. I've been listening to an awful lot of Nigel Farage's radio program and other radio programs. And the thing that keeps coming out to me over and over and over again, I scroll through the Twitter feed of people talking about Brexit and everything else, is that part of what is animating people about Brexit is the desire to get back to an image of a Britain that has been lost. Not just as a member of the EU, but something I think is deeper than that. And the Queen still symbolizes that aspect of British institutional life, even if it's only in fantasy, that creates something to hold on to. Right? It's that thing that they're trying to conserve. And and for that reason, the British people haven't hit rock bottom yet. I mean, their former empire, they're still in fading, but they still have this idea that they're more important in the world than they actually are. The financialization of their economy is the only thing actually keeping their economy from being a third world economy, and this is so many things. And I don't mean to be rude about this. This is just my dispassionate analysis of the situation. And so, you know, there's a part of us who that watch the geopolitics, and we get really frustrated by the reality of the British ruling class and the blight that they are upon the world and on the people of Britain. All aspects of it, the entire United Kingdom. And like, you know, this could pass from the face of the earth and we would be in a better place. So there's a part of me that understands the idea of having mixed emotions about Brexit actually happening, because I do have mixed emotions about Brexit happening, in that I would like to see the trifecta. I'd like to see the ultimate, which is that not only do you get Brexit, not only do you give two fingers up to the EU, which is even more horrible than the British deep state, but you also reform British politics from the ground up. I don't know that that's going to happen with Boris Johnson in power. I'll be frank and honest with you. I believe Nigel Farage. I don't believe anybody else. It's funny. All the marbles is kind of comment now is supporting my ideas. Who says it's funny to see the Sargon of Akkad say we're all royalists again. Right. It's exactly what I'm talking about. It's this idea of the image of the Queen and what she represents. That's what they're still holding on to. Right? So, I mean, from a cultural perspective, Britain hasn't hit rock bottom yet. They haven't hit the complete skids of institutional malaise. They were just, I mean, post World War II, It was all Marxists, all across Europe, Britain, Soviet Union, all different flavors of Marxism. I mean, literal Marxism. The Soviet Union hit rock bottom first. And so let's look at the difference between Russia today and the Brits. The Brits are struggling with this because they haven't been able to let go of these images. They haven't been able to let go of this image of themselves because they haven't hit this. The society that they built hasn't completely collapsed. It collapsed for the Russians completely. Today, the Russia of today is completely different than the post-Soviet Union breakdown Russia. Those people are harder and stronger. People in Britain, they're not. Some of them are, but London, no. Same thing here in the United States. We haven't hit rock bottom. We're not going to hit rock bottom anytime soon. When we do, now in certain areas of the United States, oh yeah, we've hit rock bottom. Go to places in rural southern Ohio and Pennsylvania and whatnot, and you'll see people have hit rock bottom. How they're going to get out of it? Are they going to get out of it? Where are the leaders going to come from in the next generation? Where are they going to be born? Where are they going to say, I need to get the fuck out of this state? That's where the Russians are today. This is incredibly powerful idea of what has happened in Russia. I talk about this before. In America, the parents drag the children to church still. In Russia, the kids are dragging the parents to church. It's a different thing. It's the point that Dr. Steve Turley's made in the past. And he's right about that. And that, there's that moment. I was watching The Two Towers with Sophie and Camille the other day. Sophie hadn't seen it before, and there's that moment at the end of The Two Towers where Sam gets to have his big speech to remind everybody what the hell the fucking story is all about, which is that that they were holding that all the great stories, Mr. Frodo, everybody, all those great heroes and all those great things, those great people, were holding on to something. They knew they had to hold on to something, and Frodo just looks at him and goes, "What are we holding on to, Sam?" And he's right. What are we holding on to? At the end of The Two Towers, Frodo's faith fails. Well, that's your metaphor, right? That's your metaphor for what's going on with Britain today. Brexit is that last-ditch attempt for Britain to hold on to those institutions and that image of themselves. And I have a distinct feeling that they haven't, if they think that this is bad, it hasn't gotten bad yet. And the Remainers are basically telling them that. Do you think they changed tactics? Do you think that a clean break Brexit, as Nigel Farage keeps calling it now, is the end of Brexit? We'll just get on with it and move on? No. It's only the beginning. We're going to make it even worse for you from here. It's going to be years of negotiating, and we're going to put the screws to you. We're going to make it harder and harder and harder. Are the British people up to that? I don't know. I think they are. I look at the polls and I say it looks like they want to be. But the real question is, are we going to have to go long guillotines in order to see that happen? Because the truth of the matter is, from what I can see here, and I've made this point before and I'll continue to make it, the EU will not let anybody leave on any terms other than the complete and utter destruction of your cultural and governmental institutions. They will pick you to pieces before they ever let you leave. You will be forced down the hole and beaten and whipped and shit on and be peed on and everything else. They will do everything imaginable in order to get you to not leave. This is what people who worship power do. This is what authoritarians believe. You have no right to say no to them. And if you do say no to them, we will beat you to within an inch of your life until you finally say, I don't care. I want out. And I've seen that from a great number of people within the United Kingdom. I've seen it. I've seen it in the DUP, in the way the Democratic Unionist Party of Northern Ireland have stood by the Conservatives even though they mostly voted to remain, because they understand that the EU is using the Irish border as a cudgel to beat the British people with, to not deliver Brexit. They're doing it for cheap, cynical political reasons and for cheap, cynical power reasons. They care not one whit about one person in Northern Ireland. Not one whit does Guy fucking Hofstadt give a fuck about Catholics in Northern Ireland. Not one fuck. That guy gives less than 0 fucks. This is what's happening. And this is what's got to be communicated completely. George Galloway is getting close to it. Nigel Farage gets close to it. Steve Bannon was right when he left the White House. He said, did you think they were going to give you your country back because you voted for it? Whatever the hell he said. Of course not. If you want it, you're going to have to take it from them. These people worship nothing but power. You will have to show them power. And they will use every trick in the book, and they will lie, and they will pass. Robert, I think you're missing. Robert Johnson makes the point of holding on to the past. That's the favorite jibe of Remainers. I don't buy it as a core of the Leave vote. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about that it's a more subtle point than that. It's not about that. It's about, it's an image of what they believe Britain stands for, their community stands for. And the Queen is a symbol of that. That's why she's still there. It's why she's so important, especially to these people, especially to the people who want to remain or who want to leave the European Union. They want their Britain back. They want their Britain back, that they in the way that they could make that they understand that it's theirs. And it's a symbol of the Britain they want and they don't have. In the same way that we threw caution to the wind and took a giant dump on the American electoral system and voted for Donald fucking Trump. We were so goddamn angry with these people. So it's not nostalgia. I'm not talking about this from a, like, guys, I'm telling you, you're missing my point. And maybe I'm not doing a particularly great job of explaining this, but I see this as a society, the Brits have not hit rock bottom yet. They still have these illusions that they have a democracy. They still have these illusions that the Queen matters and that all of this stuff matters and that their place in the world is still great. I mean, Farage uses this as a rallying cry, and it works. It wouldn't work if people didn't see it that way. And all I'm saying is that until it gets worse, you're not going to produce people who are hard enough and strong enough to say, fuck a whole lot of you, we want our Brexit. And I don't know that Boris Johnson is that guy. We may be at that moment. The next 6 weeks are going to tell us whether or not we get to that state when Parliament's back in session and 300,000 Midlanders walk outside the halls of walk down to Westminster with wearing Guy Fawkes masks, saying, "Burn the motherfucker down before these people have a chance to do any more goddamn damage." You see that? I'll back the fuck off. I'll be happy to back the fuck off. I'll cackle. I'll have that shit streaming on every television set and every screen in my house for 2 days over on a friggin' endless loop if I saw that happen. I don't know that it's going to happen. I'll leave you. I'll try and explain it even better. Outlaw Josie Wales. End of the Outlaw Josie Wales. They're in these met up with the settlers. They from Kansas. They found the old farmstead, and they know that the bad guys are coming. And he gives them the speech. He said, "When things get bad, you got to get mean. You got to get raw, plumb, mad dog mean. And you got to fight for your life as if you got to fight as if your life depended on it." You want this, you have to fight for it. If you're not willing to fight hard for it, you're not willing to do anything you possibly can to win, you're going to lose. They're going to kill you. They voted for Brexit. It's not enough. 3 years on, it's not enough. Now you got to get tighter. Now you got to get harder. And you may have to let the Queen go. You may have to let everything go because they're going to tear it all down. They're going to tear down all your illusions about what power you actually have. They're going to tear it all down. And now the question is, are you going to start stringing people up by their toenails? Or are you going to accept it? Are you lions or are you lambs? That's what we have to see from them. Because, and if they do that, the EU has no power over them. Johnson's done yeoman's work outing these people. Specifically outing and getting rid of and trying to clean up the Tory party. I've told you before, I still fundamentally believe, even if it's just Boris Johnson is representative of one faction of the deep state, the British deep state, and is trying to hold on to it because he sees the threat to the actual aristocracy, to the actual British oligarchy, whatever you want to call it, the old money in Britain. He understands the threat that if they don't deliver Brexit, they're all their heads are going to be on pikes. I can see that. And that he's willing to do everything he can to out all of these people as much as possible. Do as much damage before he leaves the scene. Whatever. All the Marble says, what's funny is that the people in Hong Kong are harder than those in the UK. They've been living under the threat of becoming part of China for the last 20 years. Who the fuck wants them? Oh, MGC, fuck off. The voters were not misinformed. They knew exactly what they were voting for, and they knew exactly what the fucking risks were. I've watched too many fucking... Don't give me that Alistair Campbell bullshit. Dude, seriously, fuck off with that crap. Just fuck off with that fucking FBPE bullshit. They didn't know what they were talking about. That's the most condescending crap imaginable. It's why you people are fucking losing. It's why you're losing the argument. You treat everybody who doesn't agree with you as some kind of fucking mongoloid. Uneducated mongoloid. I mean, you literally have members of parliament saying this stuff openly on the BBC now. Well, they just didn't understand. What do you mean they didn't understand? They knew exactly what they were voting for. Leave, stay. Leave. Get it done. We don't have to have a discussion about just get this out. We don't like the European Union. We're willing to take the risk. We're willing to take the heat. Bullshit. It's nonsense. You talk to those people in the Midlands that I listen to Nigel Farage talk to every goddamn day, and you got no goddamn well. They're like, oh yeah, I don't give a shit. Get us away from those EU fuckers. I don't trust those goddamn French bastards. I don't like those fucking Germans. This is true. This is real. This is reality. They understand what the EU is. They understand that the EU is a completely and fundamentally undemocratic socialist nightmare. In every fucking way. And shitbags like Dominic Reeve and the rest of them won't let it happen because there's too much money at stake for them. There's too much power at stake. And because ideologically, these people are possessed. If Brexit goes through, it will be the end of the UK. That I won't argue with. I've said this before. I've written articles where the first sentence was Nigel Farage will eventually be Prime Minister of England. Notice I didn't say the United Kingdom. No, I think if Brexit goes through, that it's a very good chance that Ireland is going to reunify, that Scotland is going to beg off. This is hardcore libertarian anarchists here, dude. I'm all for more countries. I don't think the United Kingdom should exist. And that's not what I'm arguing. None of this is what I'm arguing. But you break away from the EU first, and then you can break Britain up. You break up the EU, you break Britain away from the EU breaks up. And now we're back to something rational. I'd like to see 75 countries in freaking Europe, not 27. I'd like to see East Germany break off from West Germany again. I'd like to see Italy break up into 4 countries. Got news for you. Italy is 4 different countries. It's like I'd like to see the United States break up into at least 8 or 9, if not 50. Because it actually is 50 individual countries. Oh, by the way. Get rid of that pesky thing called the Constitution, which is a piece of shit anyway. I already have all that in most of the state constitutions anyway. We don't need the freaking federal government. We don't even need, we barely even need the state government, for fuck's sake. In my lifetime, the number of countries in the world has more than doubled. I certainly hope that trend continues before I'm dead. The Russian Federation is such a loosely confederated group. It's 15 countries. 15 countries. With completely different laws, completely different systems. And are perfectly, and as long as they don't contravene Moscow too much, Moscow doesn't give a shit. It's just Moscow's job to protect them all. It's really that simple. Yes, the U.S. can break up into probably between 7 and 11 countries, Juan Isaac. I won't argue with it. It wasn't working for the EU, and 500 members of parliament weren't fucking Remainers. That didn't want to leave, so they didn't negotiate for 2 years. Angela Merkel wrote the withdrawal agreement and handed it to May, and they just sat in a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. They sat on this thing in June of 2017. They were sitting on this fucking thing. 3 months after Article 50. They already had this thing done. That's proven. That's not the person who has been lied to is you. The person who refuses to accept reality is you. And every person who wants to remain in the EU, that's who you're up against. That's who you're dealing with. That's who you want to bind yourself to in a slavery pact for the rest of your lives and your children's lives. You really want to be governed by Guy Verhofstadt. He's one of the most vile human beings on the planet. Every day that guy morphs more and more and more into Hitler. Look at his hair. Watch him when he's on the floor of Parliament. Watch his body language. That fucking guy is Hitler. And he's really terrible. Truly, truly terrible. Can a country as small as England be sovereign? Yes! What the fuck are you talking about? The world is not tending toward transnational superstates. The European project is a failure. It's in the process of failing in front of your very eyes. The United States isn't going to get any bigger. China's not going to hold. China can barely hold. If China and the United States and Russia continue the path that they're on in terms of the adversarial nature at the financial level, are you kidding me? None of these countries are going to survive. Japan is smaller than England. Guess what? Got news for you. Japan's doing just fine. Thank you very much. Island nation, sitting does a lot of its trading right next to, one of the biggest nations in the world, Korea, South Korea. Smaller than the United Kingdom. Perfectly vibrant economy. Perfectly relatively sovereign. Fuck you talking about? It's retarded. Do you want to link yourself in a defense pact? That's one thing. You want to link yourself and have one. That's not what you're talking about. You're talking about being subservient to another set of laws. That would be like, well, what about Canada? Canada's huge, right? It's 20 million freaking people. There are fewer people in Canada than there are in my home state of Florida. Do you realize that? That if it wasn't for Vancouver and Toronto, Vancouver would be South Dakota. I'm sorry, Canada would be South Dakota. You understand that, right? You get that? Do you get that? And God knows. And so, really, does Canada not have its own laws? Yes. Does Canada have its own currency? Yes. Does Canada have its own defense department? Yes. Does Canada set its own foreign policy? Yes. Is it in line with the United States? Of course it is. Don't make the argument here in any way, manner, shape, or form that just because you're going to exit the EU doesn't mean that that the Brits and the EU are going to be at odds about everything. They're only going to be at odds with one another because the EU has made it abundantly clear that it does not want to do business with the UK because they're angry with them for leaving the fucking EU, because the EU is a bunch of totalitarian fucking jerk-offs. That's not hard. Period. Oh my God. Every fucking, literally, dude, every single Alistair Campbell fucking talking point in the world. Are you freaking kidding me? The pound will drop to $1.05. The euro will drop to 85 cents. Once it's all over and done with, and once there's some semblance of order, once there's some understanding and notion of what's going to happen tomorrow, because everybody now doesn't know what the fuck to do, everything will be fine. Within 3 months, everything will be normal. You won't even notice it. You won't even notice Brexit happen, other than the fact that you will have to deal with, you might have to like show your passport, to get into France. Whoop the fucking shit. You poor bastards. George Galloway this morning is like, on this day, 77 years ago, or whatever the hell it was, we were being bombed. London was on fire. Birmingham was on fire. Coventry was on fire. And you people are worried about having to show your passport at Calais. Are you fucking kidding me? I do a terrible George Galloway, but you guys get it, right? Yeah, like who wants to go to fucking France anyway? Brilliant. China will break up. They have multiple times. Absolutely. There's 36 million people in Canada. We have 29 in Florida. I'm sorry. They've been breeding in Canada because they got nothing else to do. All right, hold on for a second. Brundlefy asked me, is Brexit actually going to happen? Seems to me they won't do it until the peasants are beating down the gates. I think you're right about that. I know, and it's not, I think that, Brundlefy, you're a little late to the discussion. I talked about some of this stuff earlier. Here's the game. Yeah, San Marino makes it work, right? Liechtenstein makes it work. Luxembourg, where Jean-Claude, when things get serious, you have to fucking lie. Juncker. They make it work. Switzerland makes it work. Fuck a whole lot of all you people. Yes, Western Canada has rumblings of separatism again, thanks to Trudeau. Like, Alberta wants the fuck out of Canada. They're tired of Canada. I know. They're tired of being ruled by Ontario. I got news for you. We're tired of being ruled by Washington. It's like, it's retarded. Nation states are an anachronism. They're a technology that's again past their sell-by date. We have the technology right now that we don't need nation states to protect the value of our internal labor and all of this other horse shit. We have we have independent currency that can traverse the world in a second, half a second, 3 minutes, depending on the block time. For Christ's sake, we don't need governments, guys. It's like, these are anachronisms. The EU is going against the tide. The tide is towards decentralization, not towards nationalization. A few years ago, Guy Verhofstadt was openly dictating to who Europeans must breed with, like people are cattle. The disgusting attitude comes from somewhere. The guy is literally Hitler. I mean, I hate to invoke Godwin's law, but dude, seriously. I mean, he's like everything wrong with Germanic people. I say this as an Italian. I'm allowed. Call me a racist. I don't give a fuck anymore. Smaller countries do take a second seat to more powerful allies. Why Canada and Australia usually fight for the US? It's just reality. Of course. Well, guess what? The Brits are going to, because we had a policy here in the United States to destroy the United States from within so that the EU could take over the world. That was the point. That's what George Soros is working for every day here in the United States. What Tom Steyer's working for. Okay? It's what these guys are working towards every day. It's what NAFTA's about. It's what GATT's about. It's what all this shit's about. It's what the TTIP and the TCI and the not TCP/IP, that's wrong. The TPP and the TTIP and all the rest of these managed trade deals. They're all bullshit. They're all about ceding sovereignty to transnational corporations as under the auspice of an ever expanding EU law. The EU is a shrinking violet. They're like Microsoft. They're like Microsoft under Steve Ballmer. The only way they've ever been able to grow their GDP is to bolt on more bad parts. So you buy people because their core business and their core strategy is shit. It was a cash cow. They cash cowed Windows. Bad business model. And if you look at the EU, it's exactly the same. There has been no growth in the EU fundamentally as a Put on your burkini, Tom. This country who made women sexy is here, has a boot on its next. Frexit is next. Malta, Slovakia. Washington, D.C. is horrible. It's a nest of childless, status-obsessed yuppies. Never been there. I sent you a Twitter DM a month or so ago. I don't know if you saw it. Not sure if it's topical anymore. I did, I need to apologize to you about that. I meant to reply to you, but I just got busy and then it slipped my mind and I never dealt with it. And I did get it. And let me apologize now in public in front of 73 people. Sorry. I usually respond to everyone. Fermi paradox. Whatever you're talking. Wow. MGC, you're thorough, so you just don't understand. You just don't, dude. This is all about post World War II in Europe, about creating peace to the point of a gun. They're going to have peace at the point of a gun. And the original idea of the European Union was fine, but it was never in theory, but that's the way it was sold to y'all. But that was never the intention. The intention was always for Germany to continue taking over Europe. Just morphed. Drahi's buying corporate bonds to keep the show going. Of course he has to. He's going to buy everything. He's going to buy stocks. He's going to buy corporate bonds. By the time he's done, the ECB balance sheet will be 3 times the size of US. As always, impressed and horrified, because I really do think that she hasn't thought some of the incredibly important issues through to their conclusion. I'll give you a perfect example. Abortion is a perfect example. She doesn't understand that the government can't guarantee anything. And so the government shouldn't even be involved in abortion in any way, manner, shape, or form. The real libertarian argument about abortion is that stay out of it. Force it onto the counties. Force it onto the townships and the cities. Let them deal with it. Let them deal with the reality of it. Because if there's no transfer of wealth and there's no taxation and economic wedge that you can create through a power gradient over it, then it gets down to what are people willing to do to implement their will. If they want to see fewer abortions, well, then it gets the responsibility comes down to you, me, and everybody listening to my voice or whatever, wherever you stand on the issue. If you're if you think abortion, like I do, is disgusting and abhorrent, what are you going to fucking do about it? Why are you looking to the government to solve your problems for you? This is a problem in your community and you should deal with it. There are women in your community right here, right now, that want to have abortions. Find out why and try and if it's your stated goal in this life to try and minimize the number of abortions, you should try and find out why and then try and alleviate that woman's fears. That's what you should be doing. And I think that's part of the problem I think that's part of where I would love to sit down and have that 3-hour conversation with her and say, look, government doesn't provide those solutions. It actually provides the exact opposite of a solution while sounding like it's providing solutions. Don't worry, dude. The EU defense union has already happened. Part of the reason why these people are so thoroughly against Brexit is because Theresa May has already signed all of the other treaties in integrating the British military into the EU army. That's part of the problem at this point. When they talk about how terrible a New Deal Brexit is, they're fucking lying through their teeth that it's all about medicines and money and medicines and food and chlorinated chicken and all that. So those are all just fucking talking points. The truth of the matter is that she's already sold the fucking country out, and no one's willing to admit it. Open borders is not a position. Yeah, seriously, MG, are you Anna or are you Chinkwigger? Well, it's too bad because you sound just like them. Open borders is not a policy. It's a consequence of policy. It's a consequence of the absence of policy. You don't set a policy of open borders. That's insane. That's an abrogation of property rights. It's an abrogation of your responsibility as the representative of the people you're supposed to represent. It's an abrogation of your basic right, your basic power, delegated power to defend the country, to defend your community, be it a country, county, state, whatever, some geographical locality. If the world is a world built on the principles of the non-aggression principle, if it's one where we're tending in that direction, where we're tending towards peace because the people understand and are continually reinforced with, it is better to work out a nonviolent solution to dispute resolution, to resolve disputes, than to beat each other over the head with fucking rocks. As we tend in that direction, the need to defend the borders of one's property goes away. The more we trust each other, the more the border obviates itself. But under no circumstances does anybody ever make the argument that I don't have the right to defend that which I have earned for myself. The lack of nationalism, open borders, and globalism is just as big a tool. And horseshit about religion. Not that I'm a terribly religious man, but I understand what religion's for. Religion is about community. Racism is just a lie. Open borders is absolutely political manipulation. Freedom Fox One says, Tulsi, going back to my talk about Tulsi Gabbard earlier, I'm almost done here for the night, by the way. Tulsi is a pragmatist in many ways. When you are taking on the Washington Consensus on foreign policy, then you can't afford to be taking on a lot of other controversial issues. I'm not going to argue with you on that. I understand what she's doing, but she also is I think she's a very honest person about what she believes in and where she comes from every perspective. I think she's a very honest person. I've watched her enough times to know that this is where I think she comes from. Service is very important to her. It's who she is. And, yeah. And I know that, some of her positions are probably crafted in order to ensure that she can still get the Democratic vote. But truth of the matter is that, when it came down to it, in no way, manner, shape, or form did I think that I thought she was, horrible on gun rights, for example. That's just, I don't think she's good. I believe I should be able to buy 50 caliber machine guns. I'm in the minority. But she's not going to take your guns away from you. But yeah, abortion is a minor issue. I'm talking about, it was just, guys, I think you're missing the point. My point is that on a number of major issues, including guns, including abortion and a couple others, I just think that Tulsi Gabbard at this point has well-intentioned but kind of adolescent views on the role of government and how it operates in defending those rights. And I think that I don't think it works from that perspective. But I love her stance on foreign policy. And as far as I'm concerned, I know that if, for example, if in some God-forsaken way she'd actually won, I know that our foreign policy would change. And I know that that would be a very good thing. And we're well past time to be bitching and moaning about liberals, conservatives, libertarians, authoritarians. We need to realize that the fuckers that are trying to stop Brexit, they're the problem. The fuckers in the EU and Parliament and the people in the US Congress and all of these fuckers who have been literally trying to destroy the freaking world and turn us all into freaking tax cows and slaves. They're the problem. They're what we need to deal with. And then we can argue about all the minor issues later, because you have real work to do. Like, if Gabbard were to beat Trump, 4 years it would take for her to build on what little Trump has done in trying to unfuck our foreign policy. Okay? It'll be fought that hard. You're not going to turn this around overnight. It's not going to happen. Stoyanovich says, I want a grenade launcher. I have my reasons. Some of us are just too unruly to be governable. This is why I live out in the middle of nowhere in North Florida. Yeah, no, I think her sincerity is absolutely refreshing. I'd love for Nigel Farage to be prime minister in England and for her to be president of the United States. I think we could actually get somewhere. It wouldn't be perfect. Neither of them are perfect, but both of them would be good. Doug Murray, ever the optimist, says nothing will change. I also agree with you. I just tend to be an optimist that that the ball is moving forward in the right direction. Technology is solving so many of the problems of past generations that I've grown up with, and many of the older people in the audience have grown up with. We can see how much the world has been disintermediated during our lifetimes. We can see how much more it's going to be disintermediated over the course of the next half lifetime while we're still alive, because most of us, like me, are just past the midpoint of our lives. So when you get to that state, more you do the right things in your world, your corner of the world, and let the big stuff to attend to itself, the closer we are to the world I was talking about earlier. Good evening, Fun Fang. Drops in, drops a bomb, walks out. And unfortunately, you got here right as I'm about to go, hey, I'm done for the evening, because I'm working on like 3 hours of sleep. All right. American foreign policy will collapse when the dollar dies. American foreign policy will be the thing that collapses before the dollar. I need a reason. North on 60 says, look, Tom, I need a reason to be optimistic right now. I'm so beyond black pilled now, it's depressing. No, don't be. All of the things that you're watching, all of the stuff that we're dealing with, every bit of it is predictable. This period of history was coming. I've been telling you this for, 3 years now. I knew it was coming for the previous decade. But I always knew that it was going to be horrible while we go through it. But just because they win a battle, and then they win another battle, and they win another battle, it doesn't mean they're winning the war. It just means they're winning battles. But they're winning battles. They're all rearguard actions. Brexit is a rearguard action. Ousting Salvini from power in Italy, it's a rearguard action. The EU's not winning here. They're alienating hundreds of thousands of, if not millions of people every day with what they're doing. The numbers are stark. People cannot rule who do not have consent of the governed. Period. No matter how much you try to make things legal and bind everybody down with fucking bureaucratic nonsense, Soviet Union eventually fell. The bureaucracy that was there during the Soviet Union, yes, a lot of it is still there in Russia. And a lot of it has been completely neutered. Some of it's still there. So, are all Italians crazy? We just don't have stiff upper lip. You want to hear it? When we want it to stick, we give it to you loud and with both barrels. And usually pretty dirty. It's who we are. It's in our blood. It's good for our hearts. Keeps the blood pumping. So, there you go. That's what I got for this evening, guys. So the first half of it, William Middleton would be happy with. I don't know if you guys saw the comments from the last stream, but good proper English when he came in and upbraided me for my use of invective. And we had a nice little chat about it, and I just said, look, dude, this is my therapy session. No one gets to tell me I don't get to swear during therapy. This is just the way it is. And that's that. So the first half of it was pretty good. Second half, well, you know. There you go. All right, you guys take care. You be well. We'll talk soon. You keep your stick on the ice.